Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Nitya Yoga Haribo, 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 Nitya Yoga Haribo. हम सफल रचाया स्तोत्र रचित अभयचरण भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। स्वयं विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्रजगचार्य स्तोत्र रचित सुनाएंगे भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती ठाकुर श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव नमस्कार बीपीटी फादर श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। ग्रहांतर राज श्रीमद्-भागवतम जय। राम वेद जय। जय गौर प्रेमानंद all glories Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Soksargam
Mutyagam Apanam
Tam Pachatvehi Ajohavit.
Tam Pachatvehi Ajohavit.
Vacham Juhavanasi.
Vacham Juhavanasi.
Tat prana itare chatam.
Tat prana itare chatam.
Ritvavapanam sustargam.
Nitya Sotsargam.
Tam panchatvehi ajohavit.
Tam Pachatvehi Ajohavit.
Vacham Juhavanasi.
Vacham Juhavanasi.
Tat prana itare chatam.
Tat prana itare chatam.
Rityavapanam sutsargam.
Nitya Sotsargam.
Tam pachatvehi ajohavit.
Tam Pachatvehi Ajohavit.
Vacham Juhavanasi.
Vacham Juhavanasi.
Tat prana itare chatam.
Tat prana itare chatam.
Yavapanam sotsargam.
Nitya Sotsargam.
Tam panchatvehi ajohavit.
Tam Pachatvehi Ajohavit.
Vacham Juhavanasi.
Vacham Juhavanasi.
Tat prana itare chatam.
Tat prana itare chatam.
Yavapanam sutsargam.
Sotsargam.
Tam panchatvehi ajohavit.
Vacham Juhavanasi.
Vacham Juhavanasi.
Tat prana itare chatam.
Tat prana itare chatam.
Nitya Sotsargam.
Yavapanam sotsargam.
Tat panchatvehi ajohavit.
Tat panchatvehi ajohavit.
Vacham Juhavanasi.
Vacham Juhavanasi.
Tat prana itare chatam.
Tat prana itare chatam.
Nitya Sotsargam.
Yavapanam sotsargam.
Tam panchatvehi ajohavit.
Tam Pachatvehi Ajohavit.
Vacham.
Vacham.
Speeches.
Speeches.
Juhava.
Puja.
Relinquished.
Relinquished.
Manasi.
Manasi.
Into the mind.
Into the mind.
Tat prana.
Tat prana.
Mind into breathing.
Mind into breathing.
Itaracha.
Itaricha.
Other senses also.
Other senses also.
Tam.
Tam.
Into that.
Into that.
Nitya.
Murtiya.
Into death.
Into death.
Apanam.
Apanam.
Breathing.
Breathing.
Sa utsargam.
Sat Sargam.
All dedication.
With all dedication.
Tam.
That.
Panchatve. Into
Panchatvehi.
the body made of 5 elements.
Into the body made of 5 elements. He. Certainly.
Ajohavit.
Ojohavit.
Amalgamated it.
Amalgamated it.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Vaichana Bhakti Vedanta Swami Śrīla Prabhupāda.
Yeah.
Then he amalgamated all the sense organs into the mind, then the mind into life into breathing, his total existence into the embodiment of the 5 elements, and his body into death. Then, as pure self, he became free from the material conception of life. Please repeat. Then he amalgamated.
Then he amalgamated
all the sense organs.
All the sense organs
into the mind.
Into the mind.
Then the mind into life.
Then the mind into life.
Life into breathing.
Life into breathing.
His total existence.
Total existence.
Into the embodiment.
Into the embodiment.
Of the 5 elements.
Of the 5 elements.
And his body into death.
And his body into death.
Then as pure self.
Then as pure self.
He became free.
He became free
from the material conceptions.
The material conceptions of life.
Mahārāja Yudhiṣṭhira, like his brother Arjuna, began to concentrate and gradually become free from all material bondage. First, he concentrated all the actions of the senses and amalgamated them into the mind. Or in other words, he turned his mind towards the transcendental service of the Lord. He prayed that since all material activities are performed by the mind in terms of actions and reactions of the material senses, and since he was going back to Godhead, the mind would wind up its material activities and be turned towards transcendental service to the Lord. There was no longer a need for material activities. Actually, the activities of the mind cannot be stopped, for they are a reflection of the eternal soul. But the qualities of activities can be changed from matter to the transcendental service of the Lord. The material color of the mind is changed when one washes it from the contaminations of life, breathing, and thereby frees it from contamination of repeated birth and death, and situates it in pure spiritual life. All is manifested by the temporary embodiment of the material body, which is a production of the mind at the time of death. And if the mind is purified by transcendental loving service to the Lord, and is constantly engaged in the service at the lotus feet of the Lord, there is no more chance of the mind producing another material body after death. It will be freed from absorption of material contamination. The pure soul will be able to return back home to God. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeyam Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupan Sagadatam Saganadhanakam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sarvaitam Savadutam Parikanasaitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakamitasra
He Krishna Krishna Siddho Munina Vando Jagapati
Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishvadosate Devi Pranamami Hare Panchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasindhu Devacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Śrīmate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitya Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Ucharine Nirvichesha Sanyavadi Pasasataya Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Radha Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta-vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Then he amalgamated all of the sense organs into the mind, and the mind into life, life into breathing, his total existence into the embodiment of the 5 elements, and his body into death. Then, as pure self, he became free from the material conceptions of life. So, today is the auspicious day of Pandava Nirjala Ekadashi. So we'll discuss maybe a little bit about that as well. And there's a nice parallel relation here. Because Yudhiṣṭhira Maharaj, again, being the perfect king and the great devotee of the Lord, has seen that now that Krishna has disappeared, real Kali Yuga is starting. They were seeing some signs that Kali Yuga was starting, but now that Krishna has left, the full presence of Kali Yuga was starting. And Yudhiṣṭhira Maharaj said, I'm out. I'm out. No need to stick around. This is very important because we see that Yudhiṣṭhira Maharaj was a great king. He had great facilities, royal palaces, servants, ministers. He had great luxuries of life and great power. The whole of the planet was under his rule. We saw earlier that, kings were just giving up their right to their kingdoms and surrendering to Yudhiṣṭhira Maharaj. It was very powerful. And if we compare to today, we see that these leaders of the world, they hold on to power for so long, far too long. If you look at the age of those, presidents in the Senate, in the Congress, all over the world, and people in their 80s trying to hold on to the power, it's crazy. But Yudhiṣṭhira Maharaj shows us that, even this power and ruling as a king, it is seva. It is a service to Krishna. But one must be very careful, because in the midst of that type of a service with such, power and opulence and facilities, one can become attached to that. And what we see here in Yudhiṣṭhira Maharaj is, in yesterday's verse, Mahārāja Yudhiṣṭhira had once relinquished all his garments, belt, ornaments of royal order. Meaning, at once is very important. That it was very easy. He was not attached to all those amenities. Now, what would be our position? Attached to all these things, and be very difficult to walk away from those comforts of life. We'll see in a few verses, he's going to put on torn cloths. He's going to give up solid foods. We're giving up food and maybe some water for one day. He is giving up now solid foods for the rest of his life. He's going to subsist on roots and berries, because he's going to start going north and enter into basically what I understand is Vāṇ. So, this is the path of one who has intelligence. But society would look at this person and say, well, they're crazy. Why they would give up this position, this power, these royal accoutrements, and take on a shabby life, a hard and austere life? That's crazy. But we know this is actually real intelligence. This shows, right? The materials and the spiritual are on opposite ends of the spectrum. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, what is night for the materialist is day for the spiritual seeker, and what is day for the spiritual seeker is night for the spirit. What that means? What that means is that what is activity and exciting for the materialist, that is like sleep for the spiritualist. They have no desire. And the other, what is great activities and endeavor, day for the spiritualist, the materialist has no interest. But who is right and who is wrong? That we should understand. So who is right and who is wrong is factually ascertained by one simple metric, who is following the order of Shastra and who is not. Because Scripture provides the perfect solution to life. But if we don't have faith in Shastra, we can then just see, okay, what is the result? What is the tangible result of such activities? And we know the gross materialist who tries to exude the luxuries of life, eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, this animal propensity. What is their result? Happiness? Peace? Freedom from anxiety? They're fearless? You know, the most fearless person in the world is one who has nothing. Because we have fear only of losing something. If I have great wealth, I live in fear every day. Not of where my chapatis will come tomorrow. But I have fear of losing what I have. But a simple man living in a hut with 2 cows, a small plot of land, what is your fear? No dacoit will come and take anything. They have nothing to take. Bhakti Purushottam Maharaj was sharing last week that in the tribal regions that he said these village people, the house, they have no locks on their doors. Why? There's nothing to take. So the materialist is always living in great fear and anxiety. So here Mahārāja Yudhiṣṭhira is showing us that he is the path to becoming free from the material conception of life. And this is the critical process. And so what the material conception of life is, again, simple. I am this body. I am this body. And I do activities, karma, action, to satisfy the body. And how that sequence works is, in this verse, we see that the sense organs, the senses are connected to the mind. And the mind is connected to the intelligence. And the intelligence, mind, and senses are part of the body. And sitting within the body is the soul. So the senses are the gateways into the mind. What is the mind?
Very subtle.
But what is the mind?
What is the mind?
How do we define the mind?
It's the operating system for this. It's the operating system.
Mine is the best of the friends or the worst of the enemy.
Okay, it's the best of friends or the worst of enemies, 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. But what is the mind? The mind is a storehouse, a database of desires.
Okay.
That's what the mind is. It is a hard drive that stores desires. So how do I get desires? I get desires through my senses. When I see something, a desire manifests. When I hear something, oh, did you hear about the beautiful beaches of Hawaii? What happens? There's a desire. I want to go there. When I smell something, nice pizza prasad.
Okay.
Śrīla Nirjala Ekādashi. But what happens? Desire. I want them. When I touch, taste. So the senses are the entry point into the mind's desire. So that is how the desires enter the mind. So the mind is a database. It stores desires. So if we try to just simplify our Krishna conscious process. Prabhupada tells us very clearly here. The mind is always going to be filled with desires. Why? Because the mind is a reflection from the soul. And the soul is active. Its intrinsic quality is to be active. So the idea to empty the mind of desires, to become free of desires, is actually doesn't work. This idea of voidism, it is a very temporary, short-term manifestation, because eventually the mind will get refilled. You can, through great, intense difficulty, try to empty the mind. But it's like if you take a spring, right? You know a spring? And you hold it down. You can compress that spring, right? But how long that spring will be compressed? Until your fingers tire. And then it'll snap. Similarly, through these different meditation processes, we can try to empty the mind. But the mind cannot stay empty because that's not the intrinsic nature of the mind. It's why, I think we were speaking somewhere, I think maybe in our other session, that it's why the Sayujya Mukti, this impersonal liberation, it's not a permanent place. Because one cannot stay in that place eternally because there's no activity. Where there is no activity, there will be frustration. For example, it's a beautiful sunny day, the breeze is blowing, and you're at a beautiful lake. And you have one raft. And you think, I'm just going to lay on this raft and look at the beautiful and just enjoy life. I'm going to float on this raft. How long you can stay like that?
No.
1 hour? 2 hours?
Till you're hungry.
Till you're hungry. Then you'll start getting it. Then you'll sit up and look around. Then you'll start. You cannot sit. Even that. That is Sayujya Mukti. It's floating in the Brahmacharya. But because there's no activity, one will either fall back to the material world, or if they're very fortunate, though unlikely, they can progress further into the spiritual sky. And this we were discussing last Saturday, actually. Now I'm remembering this point, very important. So, why that's the case is because the mind has to be filled with some type of desires. So now let's come back to this point. What Yudhiṣṭhira Maharaj is doing, he is not trying to empty the mind of material desires. When Krishna says to become desireless, he is saying to become free of material desires. But to become free of material desires means that we have to become full of spiritual desires. Because there must be something in the mind. So Prabhupada writes that if the mind is purified by the practice of transcendental loving service to the Lord. So when we talk about purification in the mind, there's two ways to purify something. One is to remove the impurities first, and the other is to flush them out, to push it. So suppose I have a cup of water, and it is full of mud, muddy water. Right? How to cleanse that water? If you try to pull out the mud particles, it's like impossible. Right? Once the mud mixes with the water, it's impossible. But if I have a big jug of fresh water and I start pouring into the cup, what happens? The mud displaces, comes out. And if I keep pouring this fresh water into this cup, eventually what happens? What's in the cup?
Pure water.
Pure water. All the mud is gone. How did I remove the mud? By adding pure water. So how to cleanse the mind of these desires? You know, we give this journey of self-discovery seminar and we talk about the mind, and I make this point every time and everyone laughs. It's true. If you write down all the thoughts that come into your mind in just one 12-hour period, just write them all down. And if you show them to your neighbor, they will never invite you for lunch. So many crazy ideas come in our mind. And we wonder, where the heck this came from? Shut up! Crazy ideas in mind. Filled. So what to do? If we try to stop thinking about those, it'll never happen. Okay? Another point we talk about the mind. If I tell you, okay, you can think of anything you want, but for the next 1 minute, don't think about jumping monkeys.
Okay.
Anything else. Now you haven't thought about jumping monkeys in the last 10 years.
Okay.
But now I'm telling you, don't think about anything else. What is the only thing you'll think about in the next minute? This is the fickleness of the mind. So how to capture the mind? How to make the mind the friend? Because when the mind is uncontrolled, what happens is the mind starts taking decisions. The senses give all kinds of inputs to the mind, right? Every criminal who has committed a crime, every criminal, virtually, they perform a crime, but the intelligence is saying don't do it. But they still do it. Why? Because the mind has overpowered the intelligence. Virtually nobody doesn't have the intelligence to know I should not steal from this person. But they still do it. Why? Because the mind has overpowered the intelligence. This is when the mind is the enemy. You want a more relatable term?
Oh.
You won't like me. But mind will say, don't get up from Mangalarti, I'm tired. Intelligence says, no, we should attend Mangalarti and see the Lord. First darshan day. But mind will say, you have a long day today, you have to do this, you slept late last night, your body is not, no, you give good, lots of reasons. So which wins? Mind or intelligence? So the devotee, they do two things. One, they let the intelligence control the mind. And two, purify the mind. Why? This is the bulletproof strategy. So if the mind is now filled with good spiritual desires, and the intelligence falls asleep, what's going to happen? Mind is going to say, hey, come and sing and dance for the Lord. Because those are the desires in the mind. mind, when it's filled with spiritual desires, gives us the guaranteed process. So Prabhupada writes at the end that when we're freed from the material contamination, the pure soul will return back home to God. Why? This is factually, logically correct. Krishna says, 8th chapter, Yam yam smanam bhavam prajanate kaleva. Whatever you remember at the time of death, that you'll achieve. Anta kale chamameva. Smanam anta kaleva. That if you think of me, you'll achieve me. So what we don't know is when death is coming. We don't know that. But we know the question that will be asked at the time of death. What do you want to do? So if my whole life I have been filling it with thoughts of Krishna, thinking of Krishna, desires of Krishna, then what I am going to desire at the time of death is Krishna. But if I am spending 80% of my time in trying to advance materially, get this thing, get that thing, and 20% of my time thinking of Krishna, for all you mathematicians out there, what's the probability that I will think of Krishna at the time of death? So, if we want 100% assuredness, then what do we have to do? 100% of the mind. And so how do we do that? We control the senses. Why Yudhiṣṭhira Maharaj is retracting the senses? He amalgamated the senses. What's he doing here? Very important point. As a king, the senses are engaged in all kinds of activities. Sitting in royal opulence, enjoying opulent foods, wearing garments that are luxurious, people are worshipped. The senses are really engaged. So Yudhiṣṭhira Maharaj is saying, now I'm going to control the senses. I don't want to see this luxury anymore. Why? Because those desires will come in the mind to enjoy them. I don't want to taste opulent foods. Why? Because the desires will come to enjoy this bodily condition of life. I don't want any of this. So he is shutting his senses. So what's the practical tip for us? That we should be extraordinarily careful. What do we allow our senses to see? What do we allow our senses to hear? To taste? To touch? And smell? Because those are gateways into the mind. So a devotee shuts those gateways and only concentrates them on Krishna. So that the only thing that can enter into the mind are these purified desires. And as we put more thoughts of Krishna into the mind, we will naturally push out all those impure desires. Trying to just extract that desire is very difficult. But by pushing out, by flushing out, by the pouring of good water, by pure thoughts, all the contamination leaves the mind. So Yudhiṣṭhira Maharaj is now removing himself from the temptations of royal life to focus on the Supreme Lord, and prepare himself to go back to Godhead. This is the path of life. And so, the final comment I'll make here is that the freedom of conception from material life does not mean I have to separate from this body. It means that I understand that this body is a vehicle to serve Krishna. As soon as I act act in that nature. I am freed from the material conception of life. I don't attach that this is my body to try to enjoy. No, this is my body given to me to give happiness to Krishna. Done. Freed from the material conception of life. But it's easy to speak. It has to be shown in actions. So today is Pandava Nirjala Ekadashi. A very ripe opportunity for us to control our senses. Very ripe opportunity. Because the mind will tell us all kinds of things. You can't do it, don't this, that. Of course, we have to be practical also. Have to be practical with our consideration. But the point is that this austerity for us, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is so merciful, so compassionate, that he gave us very little austerity in the process of purification. Relative to the austerity required to practice Ashtanga Yoga. How going to the forest, renouncing all material possessions, sitting on deer skin so snakes will not come. Like so much austerity required. How much austerity do we have? We get to eat 3 times a day, sing and dance for the Lord, live in this royal opulent home of Devasana Mandir, eat wonderful food stuff. Okay, every 15 days, just avoid grains. But don't worry, no grains. You can eat sabudana and khichdi and morio and Ekadashi pizza and french fries and fruits and milkshake and this, that. And our Ekadashi fasting becomes Ekadashi feasting.
Okay.
So merciful is Gauranga Mahaprabhu. And he used to personally hand feed the devotees sumptuous Jagannath Mahaprasad. And he would not be satisfied if you took just a little bit. He would give more and more and more. And Prabhupada did the same. He would keep the jar of gulab jamuns at the door.
Okay.
Why he kept them at the door? Because on the way out, people would grab 2 or 3 gulab jamuns and hoping that by being nourished by that, they'll not stop and eat something outside. So he called them the ISKCON bullets.
Okay.
They like it so much, they'll come back.
Yeah.
Okay.
They were so good. And Prabhupada made them himself. But the point is, so we don't have austerity. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that we should very strictly follow Ekadashi. Ekadashi should be followed very strictly. So now I say, oh, that's too fanatical, too extreme. We have to put it in the context of the whole. In the context of the whole, we have very little austerity in our process. So we're very grateful to Gauranga Mahaprabhu for not giving us so much austerity. Again, Mahārāja's Bhakti Bhujana was relaying. Even more merciful is Lord Jagannath. Because on Snanyatra appearance day, no fasting. On Janmashtami, heavy fasting. Gaurapurnima, a little bit less. Vrishika Chaturthi the same. Ramnavami, less. But on Jagannath appearance day, Snanyatra, no fasting. But we have some austerity. So this Pāṇḍava Nirjala Ekādashi is a very important opportunity for us to take on some austerity. Again, we have to be, practical with our austerity. So we should take on some austerity. That's right. And the history of this Ekadashi is very important for us. Because we know that why it's called Pandava Nirjala. Because Bhimsen, the great powerful warrior, was seeing that Yudhiṣṭhira Mahārāja and Arjuna, Nakul, Sahadev, and Draupadi, all the people, they were observing so many different rituals and processes, and in particular this fasting on Ekadashi. But Bhima was unable to fast on Ekadashi. So he went to Vyasadeva, being a beloved, family member, and said, Vyasadeva, like, am I doomed? Is it hopeless for me? Because I can't fast on Ekadashi. And Vyasadeva said, one must fast on Ekadashi. He says, on the waning and waxing moon, 11th day, one must observe Ekadashi in order to purify and qualify to go back home, back to God. So Bhim became, He said, listen, and he presented his case. He said that I am from Bhayudeva, and with that comes a certain fire in the belly. And this fire cannot be satisfied without food. But not food, without huge amounts of food. So it's not me, I am not wanting, but my fire in the belly cannot be satisfied. So you have to give me some concession, some break. I can't fast every 15 days. So the husband explained, well, you can follow and observe this one Ekadashi that happens in the hot month, in this May-June time frame, based on our lunar calendar. It says, if you follow this Ekadashi and you don't take even any water on this day, no food, no water, nothing, nirjala, then you will get the benefit of having done all Ekadashis in the year. So, because you are unable to, you observe this one Ekadashi. And by doing so, you get the benefit of all Ekadashis. So now, let us be careful. We don't think, I can ignore all other Ekadashis and just observe Pandava Nirjala Ekadashi. No, that is not the point. But the point is, by observing and taking on this little bit extra austerity, and it is an austerity, no doubt, but by taking on this extra austerity, what is in it for me? What is the benefit? The benefit is that whatever imperfections we have had in observing Ekadashi throughout the year, maybe we accidentally took some grain, maybe we're not able to break the fast in the proper time in Dvadashi. To complete Ekadashi fast, one must break the fast at the specific times on the next day. So maybe we're not able to observe our devotional service so nicely. All these imperfections, when we take on this austerity of Nirjala Ekadashi, we get the benefit of that. So it's very, very powerful and very important. So we should try our very best to observe Nirjala Ekadashi. We, try to minimize our extra activities on this day. We plan accordingly so that we can, do our best. Also have to be very practical. Prabhupada said that, after advanced age, we should not, give undue stress to the body. So these fastings are also, we are young, except for this one, mother. So while we are youthful, we should take advantage, because as we age, it will become harder and harder, and practically impractical and not recommended. But while we are in our youthful state, we observe Ekadashi, observe, there's no fasting, no water. And if we want almost guaranteed success, we pray to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you are very merciful, you are Mahavadana. You have given us so many luxuries of life, but some austerity even is difficult for me. But please give me the strength to observe this Nirjala Ekadashi. And Garamanga Mahaprabhu will. Why? As we've heard, even mercy from Gauranga Mahaprabhu comes even when we don't ask. So imagine when we ask, Gauranga Mahaprabhu, please give us the strength, all of us, to fulfill this Nirjala Pāṇḍava Ekādaśī Vrat. And if we do, it will be a great fortune for us. It's a great opportunity for us. One time one devotee went to Śrīla Prabhupāda. Śrīla Prabhupāda, I'm observing Nirjala Ekādashi on every Ekādashi. Oh? He says, yes. I eat everything, I just don't take water. So that is not Nirjala. So we have to follow according to the prescribed process. But so try your best, and if there's a will, there's a way.
Yes.
Also be practical. If you have certain bodily limitations, you have to be attentive to those. But try hard because it's a very important opportunity. Right. Thank you. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Any comments, questions?
That's clear.
Śrīla Prabhupāda.